Hello everyone, Patricius Jiwandono again here. Good morning. And today's topic is about introduction to discourse as a tool for critical thinking. Now let's dive into our PowerPoint slides. Yes, so this is the topic for today, introduction to discourse for critical thinking. These slides are taken from a source. It's actually a digital textbook entitled Critical Reading and Writing in the Digital Age, an introductory course book, second edition, by Andrew Goldley and Preet Hiradhar, published by Routledge in 2016. So the first subtopic that we are going to discuss here is three perspectives of meaning. The first perspective is what we call textual. Textual is actually ways in which texts or ideas are organized in sentence, in paragraphs and genre structures. In case you are wondering what genre is, briefly defined, genre is a text type with its distinctive characteristics and purpose. But we are going to discuss that later, don't worry. Yeah. So that's textual. Textual means that when you are looking at the text, you look at how the ideas are organized in sentences, in paragraphs, and in structures. Structures, by structures here, I mean like problem solution, from general to specific, and those kinds of things. Okay, that's textual. And then the second one, the second perspective is conceptual or ideational. Yeah. Here are the ways by which language and visuals of the text represent, sort, and classify the mental and outside world. Now this is important. Every word that you hear, every word that you read actually helps you or makes you look at the outside world and classify things and objects there. It actually shapes the way you perceive the world. Yeah. So that's the power of language. It really shapes the way we think about the world, the way we perceive the world. Yeah. So for example, if you hear or read the word case, then you will know that actually there are some different people classified according to their sexual orientation. There are gays and there are straight people, right? And then you hear the word black and white. Black people like Lewis Hamilton or Barack Obama, yeah, and white people like Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Yeah. So you see the world as it is defined by the words that you hear, by the words that you read. Yeah. When you hear the word black and white, you know that, okay, this is how we should see the world. There are people who are black and there are people who are classified as white. And so this applies to many different things. Yeah. And then you have, for example, in our Indonesian language, we have daerah tertinggal. Then this word or this phrase helps us make classification about our country. Some regions are underdeveloped. That's what they call daerah tertinggal. And some regions have been very advanced, like in Jakarta and Surabaya. They are a very developed region. So again, the word that you see, the word that you hear, the word that you read, help you classify these entities. There are some regions which are underdeveloped, and these are some regions who progress quite rapidly. Yeah. Another popular example is ethnic Tionghoa. Here, ethnic Tionghoa. Yeah, in our culture, in Indonesian culture, this is a very well-known phrase, right? The minute you look at this or you read this, you'll see that, okay, the Indonesian people are not the same. Yeah, they are not of one single race. You have Japanese, you have Maduris, you have people from Batak, and you have the so-called ethnic Tionghoa, people of Chinese descent. Okay, yeah, so that's at the conceptual or ideational perspective. Yeah, remember that the language helps us classify the world outside ourselves. It creates our mental world, and it's full of classifications. Yeah. Okay, the next one is interpersonal. Now, in interpersonal, the text determines the relations between sender. Sender here is, henceforth, it is abbreviated into S, and it includes writer or speaker, those who produce the language. That's the sender. Yeah, so from now on, if you hear the word sender from me, then you know that it may include either a writer or a speaker. Yeah. And receiver, henceforth abbreviated into R, which includes readers or listeners. So every time I say R or receiver, that means either the readers or listeners, those who receive the language, those who hear the language or listen to the language. That's the R, the receiver. Yeah. So here in interpersonal perspective, we have these two different utterances. You can see that the two differ in terms of interpersonal atmosphere that it creates, interpersonal feeling. Yeah, when you hear someone say to you, "Selamat pagi, Bapak," compare that to "Halo, Pak." Yeah, see that in interpersonal perspective, they are different in terms of the feeling that they invoke. Yeah. So "Selamat pagi, Bapak," it's very formal. It is associated with a formal situation, yeah, with a formal way of addressing somebody else. But in "Halo, Pak," now it is slightly less formal. Now, probably the student or the person who says this to the other person has a closer relationship, or they are in a very informal situation. Yeah, so this is the interpersonal perspective of language, of meaning. Yeah. So to wrap up, you have three perspectives of meaning: textual, conceptual or ideational, and interpersonal. Okay. Now this is the underlying theory of what I have just explained before. It is called the systemic functional grammar, or SFG. The three perspectives of meaning that I just explained are derived from Halliday's. Halliday's is the person or the expert who came up with this idea, who proposed this idea in the first place. It is called systemic functional grammar. Yeah. It is actually a grammar that performs three functions, namely textual, the way the ideas are organized in sentence, in paragraphs; ideational, the way the language shapes our mind, the way the language shapes the way we perceive the world; yeah. And interpersonal, the way the language establishes relations between the sender and the receiver. Okay. Yeah. Now, the next subtopic is three levels of understanding discourse. We understand a text by figuring out its semantic aspects. Yeah. So, for example, we are going to ask a question here in the semantic aspect. We usually come up with this question: what does the text mean? It's as simple as that. We want to know what a text or what a group of words or a group of sentences mean. What does it mean? Yeah. We simply want to see or to find the meanings. Yeah. That's semantic aspect. Yeah, semantic aspect. And then the next one, we go further by interpreting the discourse. It's not only understanding the meanings, but now we have to interpret the discourse, which is slightly beyond just figuring out the semantic aspect. Discourse here is defined as act of communication in which the sender intends to affect the receiver, yeah, and the receiver attempts to interpret the sender's intentions. So in this book, discourse is defined as an act of communication in which the sender intends to affect the receiver, and the receiver attempts to interpret the sender's intentions. Of course, there are many definitions of discourse out there. I also explained the definition in my other slide, but in this textbook, or at least in this chapter, discourse is defined like that. Yeah. And then here we attend to its pragmatic aspect. A pragmatic aspect means that we ask, what does the sender mean by this utterance or by this text? Yeah. If you are in a room, yeah, and the room is closed and the weather is a bit stuffy, it's a bit hot, and then one of your colleagues or your friends suddenly says, "Oh, it's very hot here." Yeah. You have to interpret its pragmatic aspect. You have to figure out what he or she actually means by saying, "Oh, it's very hot here." Yeah. If you can figure out the pragmatic meaning, then you will turn on the AC, or you will probably open the window or the door to let some fresh air in order to make it a bit cooler in the room. Yeah. So that's an example of how we understand or how we interpret the discourse. Yeah. The person who says, "Oh, it's very hot in here," actually wants somebody to open the door or open the window or turn on the AC. Yeah. At least do something that will make it cooler there. Yeah. So that's at the level of pragmatic aspect, not only understanding the meaning, the semantic meaning, but also understanding interpreting the intention of the speaker or the writer. Yeah. And then the next level is we explain why the discourse is as it is. Yeah. Here we ask what social and ideological factors underlie or determine the discourse. Now we move to a higher level, to a deeper level. We try to figure out the ideology that gives rise to the text or to the discourse. What is ideology? Ideology is ways of thinking which reflect the power structures of the society. Of course, there will be many definitions of ideology. You are free to find out other definitions on your own, and it's quite legitimate, it's quite okay. But here in this chapter, ideology is defined as ways of thinking which reflect the power structures of the society. Yeah, that's ideology. In a simpler term, ideology is ways of thinking, ways of behaving toward a certain issue. Yeah, for example, if you look at Pancasila, the very first sila, the very first item, or the very first principle of Pancasila is Ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. Now, this reflects the ideology of our nation. Yeah. Indonesians believe in an entity called God. And God is perceived as a single entity. And Indonesians must believe in that entity called God. Now that's the ideology of our country, of our nation. We believe in God. And God is only one, it's a single entity. And that underlies all of the behavior, all of the way we look at some issues, our attitude, yeah, our standpoint as a nation. It's all, the underlying principle is that there is an entity called God and we have to believe in God. And so if you are an atheist, you don't belong to Indonesians because Indonesians have to believe in God. Yeah, because the very first principle of the ideology is there is a God and there is one single God, which we have to, or who we have to believe in. Yeah, okay, that's ideology. So number 3 becomes deeper because when you go to the third level, understanding the ideology that underlies the society or underlies the news, all of the discourse in the society, then it becomes an interesting field. It becomes something that goes beyond just the textual meaning, the semantic meaning, or the interpretation. You go deeper to find out the ideology behind all of those discourse, behind all of those news, behind all of those speeches, behind all of those political speeches. Yeah. So that's the third level. Yeah. Okay. So that will serve as an introductory introductory lesson to our discourse analysis course. Good luck. I hope I have given you some insight into discourse as a critical thinking tool. Stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye, and see you again in my next episode.